In this video, I will show you how you can create a custom WSL Linux distribution from a Docker image. WSL is basically Linux running on Windows, and you can have different Linux distributions installed on it. At the time of recording, you get a few Linux distributions out of the box, which you can even install using the Microsoft Store. But in this video, we will not look at those. We will try to create a custom WSL Linux distribution from a Docker image. But before we start, welcome to the channel. Here you can find topics about Linux, Docker, game dev, or software development in general, or short, agile dev art. If you like that kind of content, then give a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified when I release new videos. All the links from this video are down in the description, and also down there are the timestamps, so you can skip any part if you want. But why would you want to create a WSL distribution from a Docker image? Maybe you want to use the WSL-G feature and display Linux UI applications directly on your Windows desktop. Maybe you want to use systemd, which is a service that is not available and you cannot use it inside the Docker container, but it is available inside WSL. Or you just like the way how convenient and how well integrated a WSL distribution is inside Windows. For instance, you can access the same ports and same file system as Windows. Or you can develop cross-platform applications as I did in a previous video where I showed you how you can build and run C++ and C# applications for Windows and Linux using WSL. You can check out the link to the video up there or down in the description. These are the official WSL installation instructions. In this video, I will assume that you already installed WSL on your machine, but in case you didn't, it's really easy to do. Just call this command here in PowerShell. As administrator, of course. And you should basically be good to go. After installing, you need to install a Linux distribution. And you can see a list of available Linux distributions using this command here. So let's try to execute that. Copy and open PowerShell. I'm here in PowerShell. Let's copy the command here and execute. You can see a list of Linux distributions that are available out of the box, and you can install them using this command right here. In our case, we want to add a custom Linux distribution that is not inside this list here. And there is a section right here where it says how to install a custom Linux distribution. There are multiple ways how you can do it. For instance, for Arch Linux, you have a custom appx installer that's already prepared for you. You have a general guide for custom Linux distributions. Here you also get a GitHub repository. Now this is actually a Visual Studio project that you will need to configure, build, and run for your Linux distribution. And it's intended for Linux distribution owners and for developers. It should basically work for every distro, but it's not the most consumer-friendly way, I would say. So if you know what you're doing, then you can use this repository. But for this video, we will use the next guide, this one here. This guide shows how you can import any Linux distribution using a tar file. And we can create a tar file out of a Linux Docker container. And down here, you can see the steps how to accomplish that. Now, in order for this to work, you already need a Linux distribution installed in WSL, and you also need Docker Desktop and WSL integration enabled. For this video, I will assume that you already installed Docker Desktop and that you have also installed a Linux distribution inside WSL. Now let's open Docker Desktop and let's see how to enable the WSL integration. This is my Docker Desktop. Now go to Settings, Resources, WSL Integration. Make sure Enable Integration with my default WSL distro is checked. And you can also enable it for additional distros. I will do it as well. And apply and restart. Now open PowerShell and log in into your Linux distribution. WSL, enter. Now let's check if Docker is working. Docker -- version. If you get a version here, then you know that Docker is integrated. If you don't get a version, then you probably need to restart Docker Desktop and probably WSL as well. And then try again. Now let's go back to Docker Desktop. And here I prepared a few Docker images. Those images are from previous videos where I showed you, for instance, how to run the Cinnamon desktop environment and also how you can run the Mate desktop environment inside a Docker container on Windows. So for instance, if you are interested how to run the full Mate desktop inside a Docker container on Windows and also display the full desktop on Windows, then you can check out my previous video. The link to the video is up there or down in the description. In this video, we will use the Docker Mate image and create the WSL distribution from this image. So let's see how we can do it. Open the guide. We are already logged in into WSL and Docker is already running. Then the next step is to run the container. So let's copy that, paste it here, The image name is Docker Mate in my case. We just need to create a container. It doesn't matter what the container is doing. So in my case, it's just executing the ls command. Run it. Perfect. Now we need the container ID. Paste it in. Again, the name is docker-mate. And then we need to export the container based on the container ID to a tar file. So let's do it. I will name the tar file mate.tar. Export. This can take some time. Perfect. Let's see the next step. Now we need to import the tar file into WSL. First, we need to create a directory for the distribution. So let's do it. I will call it mate. Then let's exit WSL and let's copy the import command. Paste it here. I will name this one mate. The directory is in the same folder and it's also called mate. And the tar file also in the same folder called mate.tar. Let's run it. Now it imports the distribution and this can take some time. Operation completed successfully. Let's see if it is installed. WSL-L-V. Ubuntu is my default WSL distribution and we also have Mate. Now let's run it. WSL-D Mate. And yes, we are now logged in inside the WSL Mate Linux distribution that we imported from a Docker image. As you can see, by default, we are now logged in as the root user. And if you look inside the guide, here you can find the steps how to add another user and also how to change the user on login. In my case, Mate already has a second user and this one is used to log in into the Mate desktop. So let's try out if the desktop still works. We can log into the desktop using a remote desktop connection, but first we need to start a few services. We need to start dbus, then xrdp, and systemd login d. Run it. We can ignore this error for now. It should work regardless. And let's open remote desktop connection. Here is remote desktop connection. xrdp is running on the local port. So we don't need to map the ports as we do when running inside a container. You can configure this in your WSL config file. And let's connect to the desktop. Localhost and connect. We trust. It's already working. This is the xrdp login screen that is running inside the WSL distribution. And here we need to log in with our user. Test user is the second user configured inside the WSL distribution. Let's connect. And here it is. We are connected to the Mate desktop. This one was previously running inside a Docker container and now it's running as a WSL distribution. And it seems to work just fine. If you like the videos I make and also want to support me, I also have a Patreon page. I really appreciate all the support I get and it's because of your support that I can make videos like this one. So thank you very much and the link to Patreon is up there or down in the description. I also mentioned that you can run the Cinnamon desktop environment inside a Docker container and I also showed you the images in Docker desktop. So if you're interested how to run the full Cinnamon desktop environment inside a Docker container instead and display it on Windows, then you can check out my previous video. The link to the video is up there or down in the description. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, then like and subscribe. And if you really like the video, you also have a super thanks down there where you can buy me a coffee, for instance, so I can make more of those awesome videos. Thank you very much and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.